and we engage them in all sort of different ways because all our kids are different here.
Every batch of children that comes in August has something new to teach us, and they do very quickly start to teach us. That will come down to figuring out what that young person's preferred method of communication is and learning how to respond and honour to that. And all of that is just dependent on relationships.
Yeah.
So it's a real focus. The first few weeks in August every year, actually, the focus is purely on that relationship building and that opportunity for everyone to feel safe and to feel comfortable and to feel seen and heard. And everything else then builds on that. Mm-hmm. But we do prioritise that all the time, but for those first few weeks, it's really the only priority.
Yeah.
A big part of that is trusting them to know what they need, which can be quite a tricky thing when you start in this sector, I think, because we're so used, as educators, we're so used to being the experts in the room, and we know what's on the curriculum, and we know what you have to cover, and we know what's going to be tested, and it's a real step change once you start doing that, and once you allow yourself to do that, and you step back enough to really listen to what they're telling you, and it leads you to start questioning a lot of the things that you've taken for granted in your practice. Mm-hmm. and all the whys. Why do we do that? But why? But mm-hmm. why? But mm-hmm. why? And that can lead to some really fundamental changes in what you deliver.
Mm-hmm. The pupils always have so much to teach you, so you're always kind of learning, you mm-hmm. know, in this sector.
And from their families as well. You know, their families obviously know the young people better than anybody. And it's giving yourself that time to build that relationship with the young person and with the family, and to drill down into what that young person's actual priorities are, what really matters to that child or young adult. Why are we focusing on that? Why is that their target? What difference is that going to make to their life? We had a young person came to us from primary school, and she was placed in a class with a peer group, and it was, you know, a peer group, and it included another young person that she'd been with all the way through primary school, which was quite important to her, and you know, we had made that decision based on the liaison with the primary school and conversations with her mom and meeting the young person, and her visits up to here. And for the first year that she was at Linburn, that worked really well. She was happy, she was achieving, it was going brilliantly. And to be honest with you, I don't think we really re-examined it when she was going into second year because it was working. So we just didn't really look at it. But when she went into second year, a new cohort of first years came in, a bunch of young people that she hadn't known before. And we realised by about, I think, the September weekend, that actually this was her peer group. And she was, you know, spending time with them in the playground. She was enjoying their company. We tried to have lots of times in our curriculum, in our timetable across the week, where the young people get those opportunities to mix with kids in other classes, whether it's during lunchtime activities or some curriculum activities. And we could see she was gravitating towards these other children. This is a young person who would have found it very, very hard to say to us, actually, I'd like to be in a class with those kids. But we felt that was what she was telling us. So it was one of those times where you did sort of go back and go, well, actually, why is she in that class? I mean, it's fine, but we're aiming for better than fine. So we asked her. We sat down and we asked her, would you like to be in this class with these other children? And she got very excited at the prospect. We spoke to her mum, who was delighted at the thought that she had friends, really. And actually, it's worked out brilliantly. She has a lovely little group of friends. They spend time together giggling and behaving as we all probably did as teenage girls. And actually some of them now go to clubs outside school together and meet up outside school, and it's been a really positive thing for the families involved as well. But it was just about being willing to sort of stop, reassess and think, oh, could that be better? What's she telling us? What's she showing us?
Again, that's just listening to the young people and trying to give them what they need within our capabilities.
Yeah.
Throughout the year, we identify, you know, like if a young person is kind of leaning towards a certain group or a certain activity, then they can dip in and out of that. So they don't have to stay in their class, you know, with that class and those peers for the whole year. It could be that there are certain activities that they come out, they join others. And there are activities that we do out with school where it's not just a class is chosen to do that, it's who's going to benefit from that, who needs that. So, you know, there's a lot of flexibility in that respect as well.
We had an external provider comes in, and he's been working with us for a few years, and he does wonderful things with the young people. We have a lot of outdoor space, and a lot of our young people, all of our young people benefit from the outdoor space, and some of them are really at their best when they're outdoors. But we decided this year when he came in, rather than doing what we had traditionally done, which was to say, okay, it's this class's turn to get that input from the gardener, we decided to sort of take a step back and do it on a totally individualised basis. We sat down with the teachers and said, okay, who in your class do you think would benefit from this? And that worked really, really well. And like Maria was saying there, we have some young people who have, you know, attended right from the beginning. Every Monday afternoon, they go and they join in the gardening. We've had some young people who took a while to warm up to it and were given that space and dipped in and out. Some of them, for example, would do it when it was outdoors, but if the weather was really inclement and it was indoors, but they were just not doing it. And it's like, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Or they took it into their own classroom because they would do it in their classroom, but not in somebody else's classroom, and that was okay. And there's been one or two young people who actually weren't identified at the very beginning, but who started to notice that it was happening.
Wandered over.
And sort of just drifted in. And again, that was just about allowing them to have the space to do that. It's also about helping our young people understand that they have agency. And we see that as a huge part of this, that they can, if you tell us what you want or what you need, we will honour that. And if they learn that...
Yeah, then they're more inclined to communicate with us if they know that there's going to be a result.
Yeah.
And I think because we have that kind of flexibility, I think our staff really kind of tune into that. So you'll have staff that come to you and say, do you know, out in the playground at lunch or at this activity at lunch, you know, such and such was really enthusiastic, or they wandered off and they joined another group, and I think they'd be really good at that, or that'd be a really nice leadership opportunity for them. So our staff are totally tuned into that as well.
Because we're, being a secondary school, from the moment they come in the door, we've got one eye on what will happen when they leave. And, we're very aware of the difficulties that, the complexity is probably the better way of putting it, of identifying future destinations for our youngsters. And that agency, that sense that I can have an influence on what I do and on what happens to me, and people want to know what I think and what I like, is so important to that. So there's a lot of work around that, around sort of total communication, watching, learning, listening. But then we were talking just now about the fact that we've started using talking mats just this term to work with young people who are going into the senior cycle, to help them think about what they would want from their experience of the senior cycle in school. There's a slight difficulty in that, in helping them to understand that, we will try to give you everything that you have told us you would like, but it won't all be in 1 year. So that's a work in progress. But that's been really important as well. And actually had one young person just last week he has excellent verbal communication, but he enjoyed the process of using the talking mat to tell us what he would like. And when I brought him back to his class, was telling his teacher all about it, and turned to one of his peers and said, you should do it, which was really nice. It was such a wonderful moment of, you should do it, you should tell her what you want to do next year. And I thought, oh, brilliant, that you see that as being worth your while. It's a good use of your time.
There's so many opportunities in this school for choice, and agency for the young people to make choices, about how they spend their days, what the curriculum looks like for them, what they do with their free time at lunchtime. I run a Makaton choir, and we've done a few sort of gigs. So we sang at the old folks' home at Christmas. We did some Christmas carols. We did a fundraising at Asda over Christmas as well. And then just recently, we had our biggest gig today at Celtic Park at a big nurture conference. And like, what were they like? Like
Rock stars.
Rock stars, yeah. I mean, like the whole place was in tears, weren't they? And you know, they were just so self-congratulatory, weren't they? They were just like, yep, smashed it, you know, like, and it was just so nice to
Pumping the air, yeah.
It was just so nice for them to say, yeah, that was brilliant. We were really good at that, weren't we? Yeah, keep clapping.
We now have an assembly which I think is the highlight of a lot of people's week, because where in the past, you know, there would be a teacher standing at the top and leading an assembly, what happens now is children from each class volunteer and come up and point to the whiteboard or the interactive whiteboard and talk about the activities their class has done that day. We've had young people in the middle of that suddenly announce, I'm going to sing a song now. And they did. And everybody clapped. And then they sat down and then the next person came up. Or, you know, the last assembly I took, I thought I was finished. And a group of children told me that they had a dance that they wanted to show us. So we did that. And it's their assembly. Mm-hmm. And we facilitate it. We keep it on rails. We make sure that you've got your hello song and your goodbye song, and they have everything that they expect. But actually, the children have taken over.
Yeah, it's their content.
It's totally their content, and they tell us what's happening. And that's wonderfully liberating for staff, actually. It's fantastic for staff to know that there's not an expectation that you will decide on Monday what's happening on Friday and you'll stick to that rigidly. I think that's been a huge thing as well. And you're talking about the increase in confidence in pupils, but I think you can see that in some of the staff as well.
Yeah.
That there's that real sense that they will just tell you, I know I said that we were doing this today, but that's just not what happened. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as long as you know why you're doing it, as long as you know why that's better for the children than what you'd originally planned, then that's brilliant. Mm-hmm. You know, that just shows us that you've been listening and paying attention to what they're telling you.
For as much as our young people might need rigidity, we need to be really, really flexible.
Yeah.
So it's a nice kind of mesh.